kind of doubt it, but he might be. Hey, I'm going to play a clip here. It looks like the guy's face is redder. So I'm looking at Nathan, friends with Stavely, and as I said, I see steam coming out of his ears. His face is redder. So I'm going to play him for about 20 seconds. I think I nailed it here.
So I have
I'm gonna
no doubt.
pause it.
So
Okay,
I look
yeah,
at you. You're
go.
just ignorant and in darkness.
Yeah.
No truth about you.
None. Zero.
So when you possibly God block other people, what if this is their out? What if this is their way to deliverance and liberation from this shit realm? What if this is a way you avoid death? What if this is the road to eternal life? You don't fucking know.
Okay, so what he said there.
Who
I
are
stopped
you?
at
What
God
do you
block.
know?
I stopped at God block.
Jacob.
I unmuted after God block. I was
Yeah,
like,
so
oh my God.
I'm a God blocker, is what he has said, and that this is their way out, that this is salvation. So again, they're saying that the Mandela effect is a way to avoid death. It's a path to eternal life. So this is why he's saying, exile the infidel, off with his head, because what I'm doing is I'm threatening their religion. And it has turned into a religion, and for them, it's a path to salvation.
Call-in shows. Stay for the music and recent replays. Join us at infiniteplane.live for 24/7 live chat with other listeners.
But yeah, they've gone full Mandela Akbar. It's become an extremist religious faith at this point, and you're going to hear some of it here shortly. We've been going through my ebook review. I did an ebook, I published it a few days ago, The Mandela Effect PSYOP Debunked, where, among other things, I equate it to a magic trick. And that's what I think it is. I think it's, in many ways, it's a magic trick. And what you have is a lot of people are falling for this thing because they're not quite sure how this can work. And I'm explaining it, and they don't want to hear it. I'm simply reverse engineering a deception. And I think this is intentional. I actually do believe that the powers that be wanted to throw some misinformation into the field of media analysts, people who are seeing through things, and move them into simulation theory, or very close to that. Move it into mysticism, move it into the supernatural. And to me, again, being hypercritical consumers of information and media critics, I don't think you can do so from the perspective of a mystic. I think that what we're doing here is very methodical, and it's fact-oriented, and it's based on observations and evidence. And of course, the Mandela effect is, again, it's more of a new age phenomenon, if anything. And look, the only reason why I even put this pamphlet out is because, well, one, it needs to be said. We're looking at an active psychological operation in play. And the people who are promulgating it may not even know that they're being used to disseminate toxic misinformation. I mean, that's what it is. We're talking about a deliberate act of gaslighting somebody into misinterpreting something. That's what we're looking at here. I think it's a magic trick, and it definitely would not happen were it not for the interference of the interrogator. I'm going to play about 30 seconds of this review. The magician is the interrogator with an agenda, offering a very suggestive set of questions designed to elicit some very specific responses. The Mandela effect.
Yeah, very suggestive when I walk up to somebody, hey, what animal lied with the lamb in Isaiah 11:6? And they say lion, when I didn't suggest anything. And there's many other animals in the Bible, right? That's so suggestive of me. Frauds.
Is a magic trick. It poses as a miracle. It poses as something even supernatural. But it is, in fact, nothing more than a psychological operation. And I'm going to close this segment with, it's easier to fool people than convince them that they've been fooled. That's a quote from Mark Twain. It is easier to fool people than convince them that they have been fooled. It's almost an ego thing at that point. Lean Dion says, no point in arguing with a fool. Yeah, for me, this is, I didn't even start off from an adversarial direction here. I was not trying in any way to confront him. More or less, I was just responding to his challenge. But I didn't think that this was going to escalate in any way. I didn't actually think it would be taken like this. And if you listen to this review, and you'll hear the end of it, I'm going to make sure that you hear the end of this thing. They went through a series of emotions, you could tell. At first, they were laughing at the criticism. But then it became a little uncomfortable, where, yes, I actually did catch Brian Stavely lying, real time, about Timmy in the well. He lied about that. So if he's willing to lie about a recollection of having seen Timmy being rescued, what else is he willing to lie about? I believe I called the live stream, let me double check this, was it the Lidella effect? We used to say Mandoozle. I'm trying to stray away from Mandoozle because that already has a definition on the Urban Dictionary. So I'm going with Lidella effect. Oh yes, the Lidella effect versus the Infinite Plane Society. I want to say thanks again to those of you who have been supporting this channel, keeping it up. I'm going to turn the phones on right now. Phones are 833-311-1984. We can talk about the Mandela effect or anything else. It is worth talking about just because we're looking at really what I see as a religion. And at this point, it's a new religion. It's fringy, as in it's not a, I mean, it's radical is what I should say. It's a radical religion. They do believe they are, in fact, transcending. There's some elements here of like a rapture, and you'll hear it in the second part of their criticism when he brings on Nathan about how the world that we're in is this dungeon for souls, and that the Mandela effect is the only way out, and people like me are God blockers. And today, I've been watching and keeping up with a critical review of my ebook, derisively called a pamphlet, which is the Mandela Effect Debunked. So they've been, again, it's called the Mandela Effect Debunked is an ebook that I wrote based on something I actually wrote a couple years ago. I just updated it, describing what the Mandela Effect is, what it isn't, how it works. And, you know, it's a 25-page book. That's all it took. You know, some targets aren't that strong. One punch takes them down. It didn't take all that much. But I was watching this review, and it's going on live now in a premiere. It's Stavely and his friend Nathan reading the book and then giving their opinions. But it starts off with laughter, ad hominem attacks. Then they turn on the rage. And then towards the end, they kind of plea for mercy, talking about how savage the universe is and how damaging my pamphlet is. If you haven't been to infiniteplane.media, that's where I post a lot of my newsletters. And I also post archives there. And one of the things I've installed is a little app from Trinity Audio. A great thing, what it does is it actually allows you to listen to some of these articles. So I took notes today during this Mandela Effect PSYOP Debunked book review. And these two got pretty heated. Let me just go ahead and play about 30 seconds so you can see where they're at.
Go fuck yourself.
Because to experience, yeah, so that's pretty much, you hear about an hour and a half of him swearing and cursing. But let me go ahead and play. I'll let this play from Trinity Audio. You can just get an idea of kind of where it went.
Dismantling I.P.S. and his The Mandela Effect PSYOP Debunked book. I'm listening live. https://www.youtube.com/watch. V=6M4Oxane 838. There were laughing so hard at the start. Then came the rage. Finally, pleas for mercy from the savage universe ruled by God-blocking pamphlet writers. He starts off with an ad hominem, calls me a dirtbag. Such a clown, everybody laughs at you, you're dumb as fuck, you're really stupid laughter. Appeal to ridicule maniacal laughter. Anybody want to pay $5 for this piece of shit? Calls me a deceiver that knows it's real, that he warned people about me for years. Rages at the...
Okay, that was just letting you know how Trinity Audio works. It reads the articles, but I took notes. So it's going on live now, but it starts off with ad hominem attacks. I'm not going to read it verbatim. But he specifically describes me as a deceiver in this video. And we're talking about Brian Stavely, who's the top of the Mandela affected dung heap. And he says, I'm Mandela affected, I know how it works, and I'm trying to stop people from exiting this realm. So they're calling me a God blocker. And they said I'm hiding God. Apparently he's been warning people about me for years. Maxwell Cooper says this lady has a great voice. She does. And that's the free version. Eventually I'll upgrade and we'll have a variety of newsreaders. And they're probably better than me. Then he rages. There's a lot of rage in this whole thing. You know, I've been called a liar, a fraud, a phony, a weasel, a gatekeeper, a deceiver. They get kind of into talking about the supernatural. And he states that basically this is their way out of the system, that the Matrix is some kind of hell. I have some direct quotes here. Here's some direct quotes from his friend Nathan, who's about to show up live. He says that I have adversarial consciousness because I don't know about the 4 versions of Chick-fil-A, the incremental changes, that I have dark vibes, that, this is a quote from Stavely, these people are trying to bring us down. You dumb C-word essing bastards. What if this is God talking to the people? We don't know where the F we are. That's from Nathan. This is a hell realm. We have to drink and smoke, do drugs, and take antidepressants. And what if the Mandela effect is the goddamn exit sign from this underworld? We don't have time to write pamphlets debunking this. When you God block other people, what if this is their way out? What if this is how you avoid death? The road to eternal life. You don't effing know. Who are you? You demon wearing a human face, putrid, wretched, disgusting. I don't have time for your pamphlets. So that's from Nathan, who makes an appearance. Let me go ahead and play another 30 seconds so you can hear where this is going. But yeah, I am a God blocker. The one who's being questioned about what you saw. But is God Mandela? Like, is Nelson Mandela somehow in control here? There's a box of cereal in front of you, Fruit Loops. It's spelled O-O or U-I. How did they spell fruit on that box? You know, this is what they're doing. So the Mandela effect is caused by faulty eyewitness testimony. And by the way, that's kind of a redundancy. Eyewitness testimony is faulty. Influenced by the suggestion of the person.
Again, What about all the fucking physical residue that backs up everything we're saying? What about the fact that random people all around the world have the exact same fucking memory?
Person who's pointing out this discrepancy itself. So, for
This
example,
guy's a bitch.
let's just say Stavely, since we brought him up.
Yeah,
He is
I'm the
not
best. Thank you.
an objective party here. He has
I'm
an
the
incentive
best.
to convince you that you've been. Okay, so I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to go through and spot check here. I'm waiting for the part in the premiere where their friend Nathan shows up. But here's the main thing, and I'm going to back up to this because this is very discrediting. You know, he called me a liar. He called me a deceiver, and those are pretty big charges. You know, to actually call someone a liar, it's you know, he's suggesting that I have some sort of aversion to the truth. I'm trying to cover something up. Exactly. My contention with
And
the book,
others.
my contention with the book here is that what we're looking at is the equivalent of a miscontextualized magic trick that plays upon well-known weaknesses and blind spots in human recollection, how we remember things, the influence and the bias introduced by the interrogator, the magician on the stage, who plants the suggestion, either or. And I did address point by point, but you know, I think he glossed over where I got into detail about each one of these individual Mandela effects. And the thing is, I'm not really going to address the ad hominem attacks that he or his friend were into. It just kind of shows the weakness of their position. But one thing that did come out of this, and I'm going to go through the notes, is that we are looking at a religion. So I don't want to make fun of somebody's religion. You know, these aren't real supernatural events. It's a mind game, and it's just like faulty eyewitness testimony puts people behind bars all the time. And what brings that out is the interrogator bias, the framing of the question. There are so many factors that go into it. All right, let us continue. I'm going to just play a few seconds, and then I'm going to go through my notes. Misheard lyrics, or do people sometimes get things wrong? We'll wait till he brings his friend on so you can kind of see the face of it, because I want you to see the meltdown, where it gets to become very religious. I have some direct quotes here again. When you God block other people, what if this is their way out? He emphasizes, now this is the main point of my book too. I said the reason why they introduced the Mandela effect is to undermine your belief in reality itself, to turn you into something of a nihilist. Like the world is a bad place, you got to get out of here, it's a prison. It's a very negative perspective. It's very dark. So I saw a lot of projection tonight. So his friend Nathan comes out to say, what if the Mandela effect? What if this is the arc? What if the floods are coming? We don't have a lot of time to F around with this. So then he didn't know what interrogator bias was. And he says, quote, you know what, Brian? They use big words like this. And you already know they're liars and deceivers when they do. So because I used the word interrogator, I'm somehow not trustworthy. No, I was just doing my research. And then he warned me. He said, and he tried to dox me. He said, false prophet, you're a false prophet. And do you know what happens to false prophets? So he actually threatened me with the wrath of God or whoever. This is why I've been kind of only joking. I've been saying they don't want to talk about it. The forbidden Mandela effect, the one invented by Winnie Mandela, you know, necklacing, where they put a tire around your neck, fill it with kerosene, and spark it. Kind of a cross between burning at the stake and a guillotine. It happens all at once. Your head pops off in a ball of fire. That's what they want to do to you if you don't believe. He challenged the premise that memory is fallible, citing watching hours and hours of Shakespeare recitals. Well, there's a difference between rote memorization that you would do if you're in theater and the types of recollection that we're referring to when you're trying to remember things that don't actually and have never actually existed. He also said this, talking about Nathan. I don't know if this is who this person is. He's another Mandela effect enthusiast, and he claims that he's a playwright whose plays have actually changed right in front of him physically. So these are tall claims, and so they get really mad if you don't believe these claims, but the bigger the claim, the less reason you have to be angry when people don't believe them. You need to bring some proof. He said, quote, if they're not just ignorant, then they are deliberately part of the adversarial consciousness that runs this place. This may be our only way out. We may not get another chance. So again, Nathan had said, and you're going to hear this live in all caps, he said that I'm blocking the exits. He said, quote, and these are his words, nice people, shitting on somebody's hope. Maybe there is a way out of this hell. Then Brian interjects, this guy is hiding God. And then in all caps, you are effing hiding God. Congratulations. We may as well just call you NASA. Then Nathan calls me a consciousness assassin. He says, what if the cosmic cavalry is coming in to save us? Your nasty, dark consciousness is on full display. I'm scared for me, my family, and my friends. Something is wrong with this reality. Again, I am blocking God. I'm hiding God. I have dark adversarial consciousness. I'm a lying deceiver. Concealing the Mandela effect because it's the only way out. Adversarial consciousness, what does that mean?
Could it be Satan?
It sounded like a bunch of church ladies in there. It really started to get pretty bad and very judgy. Again, came off as a cult. Let me go ahead and go through some comments here. Art of Thinking Out Loud Common Sense Analytic says Mandela effect is like drunk logic. Agreed. Isn't it? Portal Complex says he should call in, but numbers have disappeared on the rotary dial. They equate Berenstain Bears changing to God saving them. SpongeBob says the only way out is through Jesus. Well, they would disagree. They even say that Jesus was once crucified on a cross, but it changed to a tree. And my response to that is, how come people wear crucifixes around their necks, not little trees? How come there's a cross at the top of the church and not a tree? There's so many things that go into the creation of the Mandela effect, what actually creates this phenomenon, and then the group reinforcement aspect. And that's why I released the book, which really made them mad. And they derided the book. They called it a mere pamphlet because, sure, it's 24 pages, 8 by 10. It might be twice that in an ebook, but it's 3,000 words. How many words do you need to explain faulty eyewitness testimony, suggestion, the implanting of ideas, the false binary, the coercion of predictable responses, of filtering people into us versus them groups, of spiritualizing what is essentially a misunderstanding? I mean, they're cultivating a cult of wrongness, and it's so self-centric. I jokingly call it the me effect, M-E, because they call it the M-E effect. I'm like, it sounds like the me effect. The world revolves around me. I didn't misspell that word. I didn't get the test wrong. The dictionary changed. Reality changed. There's no way that I could be wrong. I'm infallible. That's their argument. Dilemma? Does it have two M's or one? Because if they remember it with one M, they'll say the universe pulled one of the M's out. Jif or Jiffy? These are dumb questions, but the reason why they ask them is that it frames the question. It's not, hey, has your peanut butter changed? Any variation? Is there a version where the green is in front of the red, where the colors are switched? No, it's always there, either or. And there's a reason why. All right, let's go ahead and go back and see if they're making any progress here. I believe we found the part where they get into interrogator bias, and I believe they bring Nathan on. Let's take a listen. Formation of the false memory. Interrogator bias.
So this is complete bullshit. This is really, really gets good. Anybody that ever watches my channel knows this is exactly the opposite of what I do. Again, and these guys watch my channel fucking religiously, dude. They know what I believe and what I don't. Or at least they'll probably say I'm a liar, so I'm not really telling you what I believe. But they know what I say I believe.
Okay, we'll be back there in a moment. He's parsing through the book, which is great. I mean, he asked for a criticism of the Mandela effect. And it's going to be difficult, if you ask me. It's going to be difficult to get other people to criticize it if this is the response. If you get a personal attack just for doing what he asked. You know, he ought to be thankful that I took the time. And so I'm not a consciousness killer or assassin, like he said. What I'm doing by dismantling the Mandela effect is I'm just explaining how the mind works from the perspective of recollection and recalling facts, especially when it's contextualized like they do here, where you're looking at if you ask me, a weakness, a blind spot that can be exploited easily. I would even say that you could call it the gaslighting effect. It's the gaslighting effect. I think that this whole effect is to undermine your perceptions themselves. Reality is not something you can directly perceive. It's always in flux. It's part of their agenda, if you ask me. Again, I call this thing a sabotage operation. And you'll hear in their own words when they talk about how much they hate this world, how this world is a trap. These are quotes from Stavely and Nathan. You'll hear in a moment. He says, this world is gross and evil. It enrages me when I think of the level of suffering. And he's going to write a pamphlet? This is hell. We don't have time to write pamphlets when you God block people and this is the way out. He calls me a false prophet. Anyway, he emphasizes that reality is fake, that reality is hell, and that we need to be saved. So this is more religion than media analysis, and it is. In fact, they openly talk about it. And I'm not saying they shouldn't do that. I mean, if you want to be on this level, you know, where you're beyond just criticizing the news, you're actually debunking reality, go for it. But the Mandela effect isn't valid. These aren't real observations. I'm just pointing that out. It's a nice attempt. I almost think it's almost a distraction from synchronicity, I would say. Things that are a little more, I would say, indicative of some kind of relationship between the perceiver and the perceived. I don't know if these corporate logos and these movie catchphrases really count for all that much. And, you know, these are not very widespread things. It's not a universal thing. There are people who've never heard of Ed McMahon. Do they have to go to hell? Okay, let me go ahead and play a few seconds here. So, the initial confidence and the interrogator bias reinforces your answer if you get the right one. It's a subtle sleight of mind trick. And, of course, the dynamic is set by the interrogator, who is the magician. The interrogator is a magician performing a trick. So if you think about a magic show, the guy or somebody performing a card trick in front of you, you may not be able to.
Have you guys ever seen a card trick that was analyzed for like 6 years by people that say it there's a trick to it and they couldn't figure out a fucking card trick?
Now, let me read you some of the comments on this live stream just so you can know where we're at here, because this is noteworthy. You are looking at a cult, and cults, a dangerous cult. These are direct quotes from Stavely right now. If I was running a psyop, here we go, he's talking about this thing. I would let I.P.S. kneel before me, LOL. Always that kind of weird stuff. Very weird stuff. But his followers here are saying, I.P.S. is weak. At least Brian looks like he knows how to fight and win. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't know we were having religious wars. I did not know. But they're talking about violence. They get even weirder. You got to hear this for yourself. And he admits here, well, he doesn't admit, but he acknowledges that I refer to him as the main Mandela pusher.
But you could continue to follow this guy and let him tell you that nothing's ever changed. Maybe I've got your attention a little now. Because you all knew, if you're around my age, you grew up, you knew Mr. Rogers came through the door every day and sang It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
I don't know that. And this is him trying to get you. This is a suggestion.
I challenge you. I'm starting to offer cash prizes. We'll talk about some more of that later after this video.
To assume a level of certainty about a memory that was never important or all that significant. So it's like, it's kind of like when you memorize something, and most of you all done this. You've studied for tests and everything like this. If you're going to pass a test, you got to actually study. You have to work to memorize things. Your memory isn't a perfect recording. It's not like a perfect 360 full audio, high definition recording that you can reference. There is a process to memorization and contextualization of new facts, learning. And we don't apply that process to minutia, to irrelevant things like corporate logos, or whether this particular character said this word or that word first. I mean, it's really not that important or critical. So
you could you can minimalize it and say it's just logos and it's not that important or critical, but why can't you prove why can't you?
Now look, I acknowledge it's not just logos. If you really get down with this whole idea, they talk about the body changing, ribs changing. They say there's more holes in the skull than there were before because they seem to think the human skull is some simplistic version like you've seen in a cartoon. They're constantly finding new things out about the body that just blow their minds, and they say it's a Mandela effect. I don't address those because if you can debunk one of them, the whole thing is questionable. And to me, it's more about the methodology. You can bring me hundreds of Mandela effects to go through. I will go through them one after another. It doesn't change the fact that the way you arrive at the consensus is the trick. That's why they don't allow Mandela effects they have not approved. And they do act like they have some kind of ruling, governing body over the Church of Mandela, and they have to approve effects. It is legitimately a religious movement more than anything. They're evangelizing. And it's really based on a miracle, what they believe is a miracle. And look, you can find many examples of churches where the statues cry blood. The Catholic Church, I mean, look at the Vatican's history of using miracles. My point being, religions are always coming up ways to con people who need to feel like they have a way out of here. For people who feel like this world is hell, yeah, this is an easy sell. It's like you're beating the matrix, you're seeing through it, you're leveling up, and and I'm fine with that. However, they call you a liar and an NPC. You're basically less than them if you don't believe in it. And that's the least of what they'll call you. What Nathan said was, if they're not just ignorant, then they're part of the adversarial consciousness that runs this place. So this is like typical of religions. So they're okay with you if you're ignorant of it because you might still be converted. But if you've read their doctrines, if you've read the Lord's doctrines and you've rejected it, oh, then you're to be excoriated, exiled, condemned, cast to hell. So again, they said that we are basically blocking the exit signs and hiding God. And I'm thinking, couldn't God do better? Maybe billboards, just make some bigger announcements so it wouldn't be so easy to discredit his message. Why did he have to couch his divine message of salvation in changing underwear labels and fast food logos? Like, you think he could do a little bit better than that. Like, I'm sorry, but this is a very strange God. The job is to make reality a dream, a simulation, and an illusion. So
the job is to make reality a dream, a simulation, an illusion. Meanwhile, myself, I can only speak for myself, I tell you that this place is an experience that God laid out for us on God's green earth, and the Mandela effect is supernatural changes to this reality to clue us in on the lies of the physical reality. Not that reality is completely fake. And I have been telling you that the simulation theory and CERN and D-Wave is a psyop since I...
Okay, so this is a minor point. However, if you really do get into this religion of Mandela effect, its origin is actually with an interesting character. Her name is Fiona Fitzgerald Broom. She writes books on witchcraft, on ghost hunting in Tilton. She's a fantasy author as well, but she's the one who really started the Mandela effect, and she posited that what we were seeing was caused by D-Wave computers, by CERN. That was her whole thesis. And you know what? They kind of leave her out of the picture for some weird reason. You're going to make your life about the Mandela effect, and you're just going to ignore the person who created it. Mandela effect, theories and explanations, Fiona Broome. And so, from this point of view, if you want to go from its origin, you really have to acknowledge the fact that originally this came from a way to explain ghosts. Timelines being tampered with is what she was kind of getting at. It's a ghost hunting thing. But again, they kind of took it out of that context in a way that kind of stole it, which is kind of weird. All right, let's see here. Art of Thinking Out Loud says they accidentally stumbled into another religion. Yes, and I believe that this religion was introduced into the truther communities as basically toxic misinformation. I think they put it here so that if you're recognizing patterns, if you're seeing the fakeness in the news, you might run into some kind of conclusions that lead you towards a less of an adversary to the media, because now at that point you're taking a more transcendent religious path, more of a religious view, and also it is auto discrediting. I mean, think about it. And right after, they ask you, have you noticed anything weird in your life changing, like your underwear labels, your peanut butter? And then you can rattle off all the food items that have changed and all these changes. It's discrediting to you as a witness. Like, I think you could get out of crimes if you just say you're Mandela affected. I'm not kidding about that thing. So these ideas, yeah, in a way, I'm just saying from the perspective of the normie world, they're somewhat discrediting. And you can't really deny that. Not that we're expecting Brian Staveley to go represent some great truth to the world, but if he was, that would be a discrediting thing. Because it says something about your judgment. And how many people use these everybody knows arguments from consensus more than the Mandela affected? And that's really the basis for people believing in global warming and climate change. It's arguments from consensus combined with a lot of shame for the non-believers. Let me play another minute here.
A large part of the so-called truth community does. Sorry that we're the best and you're the worst.
That the memory of an eyewitness can become compromised by other information, such that an individual's memory becomes biased. So the Mandela-affected interrogator is actually contaminating the witnesses. This is called
We're contaminating the witness.
It's called retroactive interference, and this is a part of this discussion about eyewitness testimony and how it can be malleable, tampered with. And the eyewitness testimony is one of these things where it can be tampered with by the way that the report is taken, and these things are very well established. It's very well known. This is a very important point, I think. It's a blind spot.
You guys can tell me, oh, I.P.S. used to do such great work.
Anyway, we're waiting for... I'm not going to bother you with any more of his live stream until after he brings Nathan on, because I want you to hear. I want you to see what happens when you challenge somebody's religious paradigm, and when they authentically feel challenged and threatened, they always do the same thing, either than anything. So we get a lot of this ad hominem attacks coming our way. You know, like I was playing from earlier, I was called a false prophet, a consciousness assassin, a God blocker, an adversarial... I have adversarial consciousness. They even called Quantum of Conscious, another website, another content creator, Quantum Businessman. Man, they just hate on everybody. They hate on Owen Benjamin. F yourself, Owen Benjamin, he said. They used to be friends. But over a disagreement over this religion, they're no longer friends. Which I don't understand this willingness to just so flippantly burn bridges. You know, like the Gipper said, my 90% friend isn't my 10% enemy. Like, why do you have to hold that over somebody's head? But, you know, he set that standard. He said, deniers are liars. And so this is where I stepped in. You know, if you're going to call me a liar and call me a denier, I have to address it, because I always address this kind of thing when it comes from the climate change hysterics who say that if you don't believe it, you're a denialist. You're in denial. No, denial suggests that you've actually brought forth an adequate burden of proof, and I'm ignoring it. And that's not what's going on here. David A. Pryor says, that's weird, they attacked a fellow Menduzeler. Yeah, I noticed that religions are always like this, though. And I've seen this as a pattern. Claptrap says, I.P.S. can be on Jeranism Thursday Baby Truther Show. I would go on there to talk about the Mandela effect, because I think it's this big of a deal. I think it's worth talking about, because we're always talking about psyops and the news media and mass media gaslighting and just all sorts of really high-tech mind effery. And if anything, the Mandela effect should be a learning, a teachable moment here. You know, how did we get caught up in this? In fact, even Owen Benjamin was a proponent of this theory until he really looked closer at the Field of Dreams one. If you go to timosmond.win, as in W-I-N, win, that's where you can find the ebook, The Mandela Effect Debunked. You get it as a PDF download, and then you can also just read it straight from your browser. I've made it pretty easy there. But again, timosmond.win. might be. Hey, I'm going to play a clip here. It looks like the guy's face is redder. So I'm looking at Nathan, friends with Stavely, and as I said, I see steam coming out of his ears. His face is redder. So I'm going to play him for about 20 seconds. I think I nailed it here.
So I have no doubt.
it.
So
Okay,
I look at you. You're just ignorant and in darkness.
Yeah.
No truth about you.
None. Zero.
So when you possibly God block other people, what if this is their out? What if this is their way to deliverance and liberation from this shit realm? What if this is a way you avoid death? What if this is the road to eternal life? You don't fucking know.
I'm a God blocker is what he has said, and that this is their way out, that this is salvation. So again, they're saying that the Mandela effect is a way to avoid death. It's a path to eternal life. So this is why he's saying, exile the infidel, off with his head. Because what I'm doing is I'm threatening their religion. And it has turned into a religion, and for them, it's a path to salvation.
And again, if you're watching this, like there's a group of Mandela effect deniers in the chat. There'll be other ones that'll watch this. They're all affected. They all look like complete fucking idiots. Keep doing what you're doing, because just all of you guys, just like that email I read the other day from the guy that he saw Owen trashing me, and so he came over. And then people are waking up. I'll keep waking people up. You guys can try and keep everybody stuck in the physical. I'm not fucking impressed by people that can tell you everything on TV is fake and everything that NASA puts out is fake. Like, we know everything presented to us from that fucking physical reality is fake. We're taking it a step deeper. We're trying to figure out if this whole fucking thing is fake. Like, what is this? What is this?
God damn it.
It's not just what's on the fucking screen. This whole physical reality. What is it? You can deny the Mandela effect, but all you fucking cowards and clowns and disinfo agents and deceivers and people that are just closed-minded, you all remember Ed McMahon working for Publishers Clearinghouse. You probably all, you all remember Mirror Mirror. None of you have heard about Black Tom until I told you. And on and on and on down the line. So you can keep going live. You can keep trying to steer people away from this. Keep trying to convince them that they're fucking stupid and that their senses are failing them. When meanwhile, the observant ones, the honest ones, and the ones that don't need to wait for the backing of some fucking big truth movement will keep on going, trying to explore what this reality is. You could say this is a fucking psyop. I heard the same shit fucking 12 years ago. I've been hearing it every step of the way. You know why? Because the rest of the fucking people, for the most part, are stuck in the fucking kiddie pool. And if you swim in the kiddie pool with them too long, without a fucking swimmies on your arm, you're gonna fucking drown. Okay? God damn it. So sick of it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't think these people that are lying to you about every single fucking thing in your reality aren't also lying to you about the reality? It's common sense. Where there's smoke, there's fire. There's too much now to deny. And the fact that you're here trying to debunk it proves this is real. You wouldn't be here debunking it. I'm not out there debunking shit I don't believe. I'm not wasting my time. Why would I be over in somebody's channel debunking something that I don't believe? Let them believe what they want to believe. Why do you care? Huh?
There's so many of them. I can't believe, especially
what little fucking demon is inside your shit that's brought you here to deny something that demon don't want the people to see.
And Nathan,
I think this place is a horror show, and we got to figure a way out of this. This may be our chance.
I've proven
Reality
over and
is
over.
glitching. If these people will lie to us about everything that you people in here that are denying, you exposing all the fake shit, where do you think they stop? How low do they go? You think this is out of the court no, it can't be anything wrong with the reality itself. It has to be exactly what they're telling us. A physical, organic reality. There's no magic. Nothing can change. Those changes can't happen because it's impossible. Really?
Yeah, sorry. We also thought it was impossible that they fucking lied about where we live. They lied about fucking outer space. They lied about fucking 9/11. Guess what? They lied about the physical reality. They lied about how time works, and they lied about how physical matter works. We know all of that. We know all of that from experiencing this and actually fucking paying attention for the last several fucking years. The crazy part that really annoys me, right? It's pretty easy if you want to deny this to like tune us out to a point, but I've made it to a point where, well, see, it's not just me. I have to give credit to so many people that help out with this because I don't watch too many other people's shows. There are a few I watch, and the people know who they are. But there's, and I just don't have time to watch a lot, but a lot of it, I'm not going to watch people that are still, way back there. But people send me residue all the time. By the way, if you have any, ricefoot@gmail.com. Just make sure you include a timestamp. So what they'll do is they'll send clips from people. I know you know this, but I'm explaining for people that don't. They'll send clips from other people's shows, particularly people that deny the Mandela effect, and especially people that poo-poo it, try to debunk it, or really try to mislead people away from it. And time again, these people have the exact Mandela effect coming out. They have the same memories as us, word for word, and all these. Like, how many people in these communities have I shown affected by Joel Osteen? Every single one of them, including all the people that try and poo-poo this and say it isn't real. So we all just decided to put a fucking imaginary L in this guy's name for no reason. Now, all these deceptions being pointed out with the Mandela effect, like we started to touch on a little bit earlier, we'll touch on a little bit now. We won't go too deep into the Rona thing, but all these agencies around it that got Mandela affected right before it, along with Matthew 18:20. Okay, then you got the false prophet like Joel Osteen getting Mandela. It's like, pay attention. How about the lambda? The lambda is a fucking a Greek letter that we've been seeing in the Mandela effect pop up in various fonts and various logos, like the Kia logo has it, and it's never had an A now in this reality.